A workaholic billionaire receives a call from the hospital. "Sir, your child has just been born." But he wasn't expecting one. Dorian Harrington had built his empire with ruthless precision, leaving no room for surprises, until one unexpected phone call shatters his perfectly controlled world. "Sir, your child has just been born." But Dorian wasn't expecting a child. Not now. Not ever. Who is the mother? And how did this happen without his knowledge? Before we begin, tell us in the comments, do you believe a single moment can change a person forever? And if you enjoy dramatic, life-changing stories, don't forget to like this video to support the channel. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Dorian Harrington prided himself on two things: the size of his corporate empire and the clockwork precision of his schedule. At 35, he was already recognized as one of the top billionaires under 40, a relentless machine who spent 16-hour days brokering deals, scanning quarterly reports, and orchestrating expansions across continents. For a man so devoted to success, personal life was an afterthought, something he tucked behind bulletproof office windows and locked doors in the name of productivity. Today was no different. Dorian's morning began at 5 a.m. with a punishing treadmill run in his private gym at the Harrington Towers penthouse. By 6 a.m., he was in the back of a chauffeured sedan, flipping through a sheaf of investment proposals. His crisp suit exuded quiet power, and even the morning traffic parted for him, as if the city itself recognized his schedule was too important to be delayed. At 7:15 a.m., the car pulled into the underground garage of the Harrington Global Headquarters, an elegant, glass-fronted skyscraper at the heart of Westbridge City's financial district. Dorian stepped out, giving his driver a curt nod. He marched through the lobby, ignoring the polite greetings of staff. To Dorian, each greeting was a micro-delay. He rode the executive elevator alone, scanning emails. His top priority, finalizing an international real estate deal rumored to hit 9 figures. This triumph would secure his name among the greatest corporate titans. Legacy, he thought. That's what truly matters. But the day's routine was shattered precisely at 7:32 a.m. The phone buzzed, an unknown number. Normally he'd ignore it or forward it to his assistant, but an unexplainable impulse made him answer. That choice would change his life. "Dorian Harrington," he said briskly, stepping into the hush of his private office. A woman's calm voice replied, "Mr. Harrington, this is Westbridge General Hospital. I'm calling to inform you your child was born an hour ago. We require your presence to finalize certain documents." He froze. It was as though the phone had turned to ice in his hand. "I'm sorry, I don't understand," he said slowly. "There must be a mistake. I have no children." A pause on the line. "Sir, the mother listed you as the father on the hospital intake forms. We do need you to come immediately. The infant is stable, but in need of paternal consent regarding a few medical details." His pulse thundered. This must be a scam. "Is this some con?" he snapped. "I have no partner. I have no relationships." That last part stung more than he expected, a reminder of how alone he truly was. The woman maintained professional calm. "You're welcome to confirm with our patient registration desk. We have Miss Cassandra Boyd here, who named you father of her child. Would you like to speak with her?" Dorian's mind reeled. Cassandra Boyd? The name triggered a faint recollection. A poised, intelligent lawyer he'd once met at a gala. She'd impressed him with her fierce legal mind. They'd had a single spontaneous night together, 8 months ago. Then life moved on, or so he believed. She never contacted him again. He inhaled shakily, eyes darting around his pristine office. Wait, is she all right?" The staffer replied gently. "Miss Boyd is stable, but she insisted we contact you. The baby was born prematurely. We recommend you come in person. We'll verify your identity upon arrival." Dorian stood there, phone pressed to his ear, pulse drumming. The day's meticulously planned schedule unraveled in his mind. "I have a child?" It sounded ridiculous. Yet something in Cassandra's memory felt real. She wasn't the type for pranks. If this was real, he forced down a surge of panic. "Tell them I'll be there shortly." Ending the call, Dorian sank into his leather office chair, chest tight. A baby? Had he truly fathered a child and never known? A wave of guilt mingled with shock. He glanced at the day's carefully laid out agenda on his desk. The biggest meeting of his quarter began in an hour. But a child. It was unthinkable that Dorian Harrington, the man who scheduled bathroom breaks, would skip a major deal. But the hospital's urgent tone sparked something deeper. Duty. Or maybe fear. I have to see what's going on, he decided, snatching his coat. Canceling everything, he strode out, ignoring the startled expression of his assistant. In the elevator, adrenaline surged. A father? Me? He rarely allowed emotions to overshadow logic, but this time, reason offered no anchor. His entire reality wavered. Cassandra, how could she not tell me? Then worry for her and the newborn spiked. If the baby's premature, it could be critical. Arriving at his sedan, he instructed his driver, hospital, now. The engine roared to life. As the city blurred outside the windows, Dorian pressed a trembling hand to his forehead. He, who thrived on control, was thrust into the unknown. The possibility he had a son or daughter left him unsteady. Fear, curiosity, guilt that he hadn't been by Cassandra's side. They coalesced into a single, urgent compulsion. Find out the truth. He was no longer thinking of the 9-figure real estate deal. The phone blinked with missed calls from business partners. He ignored them all. Because if this baby was truly his, everything he valued, his legacy, his control over life, might never be the same again. Westbridge General Hospital bustled with the usual commotion. Doctors rushing, patients waiting, overhead announcements echoing across sterile hallways. For Dorian Harrington, who thrived in the smooth luxury of corporate boardrooms, the chaotic environment jangled his nerves. His polished shoes squeaked on the tiled floor as he made his way to the reception desk. The receptionist, a middle-aged man in scrubs, looked up. "May I help you?" Dorian cleared his throat, feeling strangely exposed. "I'm here for Miss Cassandra Boyd. I was told she had my child." The receptionist's brow arched slightly, but he remained professional. "Your name, sir?" "Dorian Harrington." A flicker of recognition crossed the man's face. Evidently, the Harrington name carried weight. "Yes, Mr. Harrington, one moment." He tapped at a computer, then nodded. "Neonatal ward, room 511. The nurse will verify ID." Dorian offered a tight nod, heading down the corridor. He moved on autopilot, ignoring the curious stares. Up an elevator, down another hallway. Finally, he stopped outside room 511. This is it. The door was ajar. Inside, a soft beep of monitors, hushed voices. "Am I prepared?" He stepped in. The pastel walls and overhead lighting felt too gentle for his roaring anxiety. A nurse glanced up. She approached, checking his ID briskly. "Your father to Miss Boyd's child, correct?" He swallowed, offering his wallet. "She claims I am. I'm not. Sure." His voice quavered, an unusual vulnerability. The nurse nodded, returning the ID. "Understood. Miss Boyd's just come out of a difficult labor. She's stable but exhausted. The infant's in neonatal observation, slightly premature but stable for now." Relief eased some of the tension. At least the baby's stable. "Can I see Cassandra first?" "Certainly." The nurse guided him behind a curtain. Cassandra Boyd lay in bed, eyes closed, an IV drip at her side. Despite her pale face and tangled hair, she radiated a poised presence even in exhaustion. Dorian's heart twisted at the sight. She was always so strong, yet now she looks fragile. He approached, unsure how to greet her after months of no contact. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing on him. "Dorian," she whispered, voice raw. "Cassandra," he murmured. He carefully took a seat at her bedside, resisting the urge to do more. We're practically strangers. Yet the memory of that single night together glimmered in his mind. She'd been brilliant, confident, a spark he rarely found in others. She cleared her throat. "I see you got the hospital's call." He nodded, jaw tight. "Yes, and I came as soon as I could. They said, the baby's premature but stable. Are you all right?" A faint smile. "I'll survive. The labor was complicated." She hesitated, looking away. "I know this must be a shock. Believe me, I never planned it like this." His chest constricted. "Then why not tell me earlier? I could have helped. Instead, I find out from a hospital staffer that I might have a child." Her gaze dropped to the thin blanket. "I was going to, but I discovered the pregnancy late, and then you're Dorian Harrington. You barely have time to breathe. I was terrified you'd see it as a liability." She grimaced, tears threatening. "I tried drafting emails, calls, but I kept losing nerve. Finally, I decided to handle it alone. But the complications made them ask for paternal consent. Hence the call." He inhaled slowly, frustration mingling with empathy. Cassandra, I'd never have dismissed you or the baby. I might be busy, but this is important. A child is no mere footnote in my day planner. She nodded, tears brimming. I was foolish. I regret it now. But more importantly, your son is in the NICU. He's small, but the doctors say he has a strong chance if we handle it carefully. He needs some interventions, possibly a short stay in the incubator. They require paternal signatures for certain procedures. Son, Dorian echoed, voice cracking. He had a son. The enormity crashed over him again, a wave of uncharted emotion. Can I see him? She managed a weak smile, handing him a small hospital wristband with Harrington Boyd Baby typed on it. Yes, the nurse can guide you. Let me rest a moment, then I'll join. He stood, mind spinning. I'm a father. I have a son. The notion felt both terrifying and oddly stirring. For a man who'd built an empire, he suddenly felt smaller than ever in the face of this new life. I'll come back after I meet him, he told Cassandra softly, giving her hand a brief squeeze. She squeezed back, eyes glistening with complicated relief. Dorian stepped out, escorted by the nurse to a sealed neonatal ward door. A quiet beep let them in. Rows of clear incubators lined the softly lit space. Gentle machinery hummed. Nurses moved with practiced calm, adjusting tubes and monitors. The nurse pointed to a specific incubator. That's your boy. He approached carefully, heart pounding. Under the warm glow of a heat lamp lay a tiny infant with tubes gently taped to his wrist, small chest rising and falling. Dorian's throat constricted. So small, so fragile. A wave of protectiveness surged, surprising him with its intensity. He stared, speechless. The nurse whispered encouraging words. You can talk to him, or place a hand near him. Skin-to-skin contact helps, but the doctor will advise if he's ready. He nodded dumbly, leaning over. The baby's face, though minuscule, had a certain determined look, a hint of the Harrington steel, perhaps? Hello, Dorian murmured, voice unsteady. I'm your father, apparently. He nearly laughed at how absurd it sounded, but tears pricked his eyes. He's real, and he's mine. In that moment, his phone vibrated, likely a business crisis. He silenced it without a second glance. It doesn't matter right now. He gently laid a hand near the incubator's opening. The baby stirred, a faint whimper, but then settled. Dorian's vision blurred with emotion. I built an empire, but never imagined building a family. Yet here you are, changing everything. He spent long minutes watching the gentle rise and fall of the baby's chest, each breath more vital than any stock ticker or merger. The nurse quietly explained the baby's condition. Slight underdevelopment of lungs, but promising vitals. With proper care, he could thrive. Dorian exhaled, a new resolution forming. I'll do everything to help him thrive. The unstoppable CEO who conquered markets now had a far more profound goal. Protecting this child from life's unpredictability. He made a vow in that hushed ward. A vow that would reshape his priorities forever. No matter how impossible it seemed, he wouldn't let his son down. Over the next few days, Dorian Harrington's life underwent a seismic shift. Instead of diving into back-to-back investor meetings, he found himself shuttling between the Harrington Global Boardroom and Westbridge General's neonatal ward. His once rigid schedule erupted into chaos as he tried to juggle the demands of a corporate empire with the needs of a premature newborn and a recovering mother. As soon as the media caught wind, some nurse inadvertently recognized Dorian, or perhaps a gossip-seeking visitor snapped a photo. Rumors flooded social networks. Billionaire Harrington's secret heir? Headlines screamed. Paparazzi tried sneaking into the hospital. Harrington's PR team scrambled for damage control. But for once in his career, Dorian found he didn't care about the tabloids. His attention stayed on the tiny boy in the NICU. Each day, he'd appear at dawn, greeting the staff in subdued hallway lighting. Cassandra, on bed rest, sometimes joined him. She was improving physically, though emotionally drained. Together they hovered over the incubator, tentatively discussing a name. I thought about Caleb, Cassandra ventured, wincing slightly, but I'd like your input. Dorian turned the syllables over in his mind. Caleb Harrington. It has a good ring, he said softly, offering a small smile. Cassandra relaxed, relieved. Despite the tension between them, they found moments of awkward warmth, like trying to learn each other's favorite colors or foods. They realized how little they knew about one another, beyond that single, impulsive night. Meanwhile, in the corporate realm, Dorian's absence caused ripples. He assigned his top executives to handle urgent deals, trusting them to push forward. Some on the board were displeased. They demanded to see him in person. An emergency meeting was called, so Dorian found himself in Harrington Tower's top-floor boardroom one afternoon, flanked by stern-faced executives. "You've vanished for days," said one board member, Miss Long, crossing her arms. "We understand personal matters arise, but these major deals need your leadership. Our stock price wavers." Dorian clenched his jaw. "I'm aware, but a family emergency took precedence. We'll finalize the real estate deal next week." Another board member, Markham, frowned. "We appreciate your personal obligations, but Harrington Global can't drift. We rely on your vision. The synergy with our overseas partners is at risk." He realized they had no empathy for his fatherhood crisis, or if they did, it was overshadowed by corporate greed. What if I've been that cold, ignoring employees' personal emergencies? The thought unsettled him. He straightened, voice firm. "I'm temporarily delegating tasks to the senior team. I have full confidence in them. The child's well-being is my priority right now." A ripple of shock passed across their faces. Dorian had never placed anything above work before. Ms. Long's features softened slightly, but Markham and a few others looked unconvinced. Regardless, no one dared overthrow him. He held controlling shares. Exiting the boardroom, Dorian felt oddly liberated. "I do have a life outside these walls." Still, the tension reminded him that the business world wouldn't simply pause. He texted Cassandra, checking on her, then rushed back to the hospital. That evening, as he stood by Caleb's incubator, Cassandra quietly asked, "What about after the hospital release? He'll need a stable home environment." She fiddled with her hospital bracelet, anxiety etched in her eyes. "I can't do this alone. My job as a junior attorney is demanding enough, and the bills, they're piling up." A pang of guilt pricked Dorian's heart. Of course he had the means to handle medical bills and child support, but the deeper question loomed. Would he truly be there for them, or just throw money? "Let me handle expenses," he offered gently, "and maybe you and Caleb can come to my place, at least until we figure out something more permanent." The words surprised him, but a deeper paternal instinct guided them. His penthouse was enormous, full of empty rooms. The idea of them living alone, struggling, felt wrong. Cassandra looked startled. "That's a big step, are you sure?" He inhaled. He'd never cohabited with anyone. He wasn't sure. "It's practical. Caleb might need follow-up care. My place is closer to the best pediatric specialists, and I can ensure around-the-clock help. Then if we can't stand living together, we'll arrange something else." A faint attempt at humor, though he was half serious. She hesitated, tears glistening. "I appreciate the offer. I do, but," she swallowed, "I worry we'd be strangers under one roof, and you have your business." He placed a careful hand on her shoulder. "Cassandra, we might not know each other well, but we both want Caleb safe. Let's try. If it fails, we'll find another arrangement. I don't want you overwhelmed financially or him lacking care." Her eyes shimmered. "Thank you." Just then, a nurse approached, beaming. "Good news, Caleb's vitals are strong enough to move from the incubator to a warming crib soon. You might be able to hold him properly tomorrow." Emotion flooded them both. Cassandra let out a joyful breath, and Dorian felt a tightness in his chest ease. "He's improving," he whispered, relief surging. If he'd questioned any paternal instincts, the sight of his tiny son growing stronger each day answered them. He wanted to be a father, even if the path was terrifying. Behind that relief, though, lay many questions. How would their untested partnership work in real life, away from these hospital halls? Could Dorian truly balance fatherhood with the demands of Harrington Global? And what about the looming media storm? Time alone would provide answers. For now, he clutched Cassandra's hand, both of them gazing at the fragile infant who had unwittingly bound their lives together. "We'll figure this out, little one," Dorian thought, swallowing a surge of protectiveness. "We'll do our best to be the parents you deserve." Within a week, Caleb gained enough weight to leave the hospital. His improvement brought an outpouring of relief for both parents, though Cassandra still required follow-up checkups. True to his promise, Dorian insisted on clearing every hospital bill. He also arranged for a small team of private nurses to assist. Cassandra, proud and independent, tried to protest, but one look at her fatigued face and the tiny newborn in her arms softened her stance. She needs rest, Dorian thought. We both do. The day Caleb was discharged, a swirl of paparazzi lingered at the hospital entrance, cameras flashing. That was the moment reality sank in. They were front-page news. Summoning his security detail, Dorian escorted Cassandra and Caleb through a private exit, cameras popping even from a distance. Cassandra's shoulders tensed, anxiety flaring, the baby fussed, picking up on the stress. Dorian set his jaw. They'll do anything for a headline. Let's get you home safely. Home, he realized, meant his penthouse, for now. Upon arriving, Cassandra gaped at the Harrington Towers penthouse. Polished floors, soaring windows with city views, minimalist decor that screamed wealth. She cradled Caleb, stepping gingerly across the marble foyer. I've never seen a place so huge, she said softly. It feels like a hotel. He gave a wry smile. I suppose it does. I never spent enough time here to make it homier. You can personalize the guest suite. Make it comfortable. He led her down a corridor to a spacious bedroom with an adjoining lounge, larger than many city apartments. Cassandra laid Caleb in the bassinet, gently provided by Dorian's staff. She exhaled, exhausted. Thank you, she murmured. I'll pay you back somehow. He shook his head. That's not necessary. Let's just focus on Caleb. Inside, relief mingled with awkwardness. We're basically roommates plus a baby. The arrangement was tenuous, but the only logical next step. Over the next days, the penthouse atmosphere vacillated between endearing familial moments and stiff awkwardness. Dorian discovered how to hold a bottle, change diapers, and calm a squalling infant at 3 a.m. He fumbled but persisted, determined to be more than a paycheck father. Meanwhile, Cassandra struggled with postpartum hormones and the surrealness of living in a billionaire's penthouse. She often felt out of place, but found comfort in Dorian's unwavering support. He might be exacting in business, but with Caleb he was gentle, if clumsy. One morning, Dorian woke early to the baby's cries. He rushed to the nursery area, half expecting the night nurse to handle it, but she was at shift's end. Cassandra was there, bleary-eyed. I'm sorry, she said, yawning. He's just fussy. Dorian quietly took over, rocking Caleb in his arms. The baby eventually cooed softly, big eyes blinking. Cassandra watched with a small, tired smile. You're better at that than I expected. He chuckled, a surprising fondness warming his chest. Never thought I'd say this, but I actually look forward to it. It's real. She nodded, emotion flickering. Yeah, it's real. Their gazes locked. A gentle hush enveloped them. Could this be the start of something deeper? Dorian wondered. The moment brimmed with unspoken possibility. Then the baby hiccuped, deflating the tension. Cassandra laughed softly, and Dorian smiled, feeling a sense of closeness he hadn't felt in years. But the outside world refused to remain quiet. Harrington Global demanded Dorian's presence. Board members complained about an absentee CEO. The media spun stories about the mysterious mother living in Dorian's penthouse. Business gossip whispered that Harrington had gone soft. Some staff reported that he was ignoring certain deals to be at home with the baby. Indeed, Dorian found himself skipping or shortening major meetings, his mind always half at home, worrying if Cassandra needed him. One afternoon, Miss Lone from the board cornered him. There's talk of a potential investor pulling out because they sense disarray at the top. Are you going to assure them you're still fully in charge? He pressed his lips thin, remembering how tiny Caleb's hand curled around his finger. I'll handle it, Miss Lone, he said curtly. Don't doubt my commitment. Yet as the weeks progressed, even he couldn't deny the balancing act was precarious. On the home front, tensions flared too. Cassandra tried returning to part-time legal cases, leaving Dorian's staff or hired nannies to watch Caleb. But guilt gnawed at her for leaving him. She was also fiercely protective, snapping if a nanny used the wrong formula brand. Meanwhile, Dorian stressed over whether he was overshadowing her decisions by controlling every resource with his wealth. Late one evening, with Caleb finally asleep, the two of them sat in the penthouse lounge, city lights twinkling far below. The silence weighed on them. Cassandra sipped tea, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion. Dorian cleared his throat. We never truly spoke about Us, or what we want for Caleb, long term. She sighed. No, I've been avoiding it too. This can't be indefinite. You're used to your space. I'm used to independence. We're living in a bubble. He set his mug down. I want to do what's best for him. If that means you want your own place, I'll cover any support needed. If you want to stay, He paused, uncharacteristically uncertain. I'd welcome that too. Cassandra's eyes softened. Dorian, I appreciate your generosity, but I can't just take a blank check. I want to stand on my own feet. Then again, part of me wonders if we can make a real family. But do we have a foundation for that beyond this baby? His chest tightened. I don't know, he admitted quietly, but care about you, more than I expected, and I care deeply about Caleb. He's undone me, Dorian thought. She blinked rapidly, emotion filling her gaze. I care, too, but we must be realistic. Our worlds are so different, and your board is already pushing you to return to your old ways. Bitterness edged his voice. I used to believe building an empire was everything. Now I realize it's not enough. The board can adapt, or I'll find new people who will. But I want you and Caleb in my life. Maybe we try, co-parenting with sincerity. A tear rolled down her cheek. I'd like that, she whispered. They shared a quiet, vulnerable moment. No paparazzi, no board, just two tired parents forging a fragile alliance for their child's sake, and possibly for themselves. Unbeknownst to them, fate would soon test their resolve with unexpected trials. The next few weeks would bring challenges from both business corners and personal skeletons in Dorian's past. The question of whether he could truly balance fatherhood and empire building, or whether their uncertain bond could weather the storm, remained painfully open. But for now, in the hush of the penthouse lounge, they leaned on each other, united by a tiny baby boy who had managed to unravel and rebuild both their hearts. Another month passed, and while daily life settled into a gentler rhythm, cracks began to show. Dorian insisted on personally tucking Caleb in each evening, reading him bedtime stories about far-off kingdoms and loyal knights. Ironic, given how Dorian had rarely believed in fairy tales. Cassandra, meanwhile, took on small legal cases from home, establishing a makeshift office in a spare bedroom. The arrangement made the penthouse less sterile and more like a real home. But Harrington Global's demands only grew. Rumors swirled that a hostile takeover might be brewing. Certain board members aligned with Markham expressed dissatisfaction with Dorian's lack of focus. Share prices dipped as competitor companies questioned Harrington Global's leadership stability. One morning, Miss Lung delivered an ultimatum. Either you reaffirm your commitment to daily oversight, or we risk losing major investors. Dorian felt torn in two. For the first time, he didn't want to throw himself fully into crisis management. I have a family now, he told Ms. Lung stiffly. They matter more. She eyed him with thinly veiled concern. I respect that, but the company can't drift. Harrington Global has thousands of employees depending on you. This is bigger than a single child, Mr. Harrington. The words stung, though they reflected a harsh truth. If the company collapsed, many livelihoods would suffer. That evening, he came home late, exhausted from firefighting corporate tensions. He found Cassandra pacing with a fussy Caleb. She glared at Dorian. We were waiting for you. The nanny left at 6. I had a meltdown with a client, and I needed help. Guilt twisted in him. I'm sorry, the board, some emergency. I got stuck. Her voice shook. It keeps happening. You promise involvement, then vanish for hours. Caleb wailed, intensifying her frustration. I'm trying to do my job too, but I can't handle all the childcare alone. Dorian reached out, but she pulled back. Cassandra, I'm truly sorry. This is all new to me. I'm used to dealing with corporate fires, not an infant's bedtime meltdown. I want to be here, but the board threatened me with. She let out a bitter laugh. We revolve around your empire's schedule. Isn't that the definition of an absent father? He flinched at the accusation. Maybe I am failing. Let me take him now, he said softly. She relented, handing Caleb over. The baby's cries subsided slightly as Dorian bounced him gently, though tears still glistened in Cassandra's eyes. In that tense hush, Dorian recognized the precariousness of their arrangement. I can't keep waffling. He needed a decisive shift. Something had to give. Either he scale back Harrington Global or risk losing his new family. But the idea of stepping away from the empire he'd spent a lifetime building felt impossible. A week later, Markham and a coalition of board members called for a special shareholders meeting to evaluate Dorian's leadership. The corporate press devoured the story, framing it as a titan in crisis. Will fatherhood derail the Harrington legacy? The coverage enraged Dorian, but also hammered home a choice: bury himself in business to reclaim control, or risk losing the company while forging a new path as a father. Could there be a middle ground? Cassandra watched him grow increasingly haggard. One night, after Caleb slept, she gently confronted him. "Dorian, you can't keep running at both ends. You're pale, you barely eat. This stress will break you." He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "The board might push me out if I don't prove my commitment, but if I commit fully, I'll be a ghost to you and Caleb. I can't. I don't know how to fix this." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Step back. Let someone else be CEO temporarily. You can still own the company. You have the controlling shares, right? Appoint an interim leader." The idea jolted him. Step aside from my own empire? That feels like failure. She knelt before him, eyes earnest. Is it failure to ensure you're present for your son's first steps? For building a stable relationship with him and with me, if that's what we want? You don't have to lose everything. Just delegate, Dorian. Harrington Global will survive. Your board might be furious, but you're still the majority stakeholder. He mulled it over, chest tight. The concept threatened his identity, but he thought of Caleb's bright eyes, how the baby now smiled widely each morning, or how Cassandra had begun to trust him in quiet ways. Is an empire more important than a family? For so long he'd believed success in business was life's pinnacle. Now, with fatherhood thrust upon him, he questioned that fundamental assumption. He took Cassandra's hand. "I want to try. But stepping down, even temporarily, is a massive shift. The board could sabotage me." Her gaze hardened with determination. "You're Dorian Harrington. You can handle them, and I'll help in any way I can. You gave me a chance to raise Caleb in comfort. Let me help you maintain your position as an owner while easing daily responsibilities." He exhaled, heart pounding. "Yes, I can craft a plan. Install a trusted executive as interim CEO. Keep final veto power as majority owner. Focus on Caleb, at least for the first crucial months." The seed of hope took root. That night, as he rocked Caleb to sleep, Dorian made up his mind. He'd call an emergency board meeting, announce a restructure. Sure, the market might wobble, naysayers might crow, but for once, he'd place personal happiness above short-term corporate maneuvers. "You deserve a father who's here," he whispered to Caleb, tears in his eyes. "I won't let you down." The Harrington Global Board meeting was set for a Monday morning, a swirl of tension thick in the air. The rumor mill churned. Will Harrington fight or fold? Some media personalities predicted a meltdown. Others speculated Dorian would come roaring back, doubling down on authority. In truth, he'd prepared a precise plan. He'd relinquish day-to-day CEO duties to a hand-picked deputy, retaining only strategic oversight as chairman. This would free him to be a present father for Caleb's first year at least. Dorian entered the top-floor boardroom with quiet resolve, ignoring the cluster of cameras outside. Board members ringed a long mahogany table, expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. Ms. Long and Markham were at the center, ready to pounce. Dorian stood at the head. "Thank you for assembling," he began calmly. "I've heard the concerns about my availability. Let's address them openly." He clicked a remote, displaying slides, an uncharacteristically personal move. The slides outlined Harrington Global's robust structure, the succession plan if anything ever happened to him. Then he revealed the new structure. An interim CEO, Gloria Sharp, his longtime COO, proven and respected. Dorian to remain majority owner, stepping into a chairman role with veto powers. The company's strategic vision would remain aligned with his values, but day-to-day operations would be Sharp's domain. A wave of murmuring rippled across the table. Markham scowled. "So you're stepping down? Surrendering the helm?" Dorian calmly met his gaze. "I'm delegating. The numbers show Harrington Global is stable, with or without me micromanaging. Ms. Sharp is fully capable. I remain in ultimate control as chairman. This arrangement is to ensure continuity while I handle urgent personal matters." Ms. Lung frowned. The market might see this as weakness. Dorian lifted his chin. That's better than a burned-out CEO. I've built this empire to outlast any single point of failure, including me. If the market wavers, so be it. We'll prove them wrong with consistent performance. Silence followed. Miss Sharp, who had joined the meeting, nodded firmly. I've served under Mr. Harrington for years. I can uphold his standards. We're not losing him. He's simply changing position. Our investors care about results, and we'll deliver. A slow, grudging respect lit Miss Lung's eyes. Markham, though disgruntled, realized he lacked the votes to block the plan. They took a formal vote. The motion passed with a majority. Dorian exhaled, relief mingling with trepidation. I actually did it. I let go of the daily reins. A flicker of fear about lost control still gnawed at him, but he suppressed it. For Caleb, for Cassandra, for myself. After the meeting, he stepped out into the corridor, ignoring the press. Miss Sharp walked beside him, smiling slightly. I won't let you down, Mr. Harrington. He offered a small smile in return. I know you won't. Thank you, Gloria. Before heading home, he paused by an office window, gazing down at the city. So many years I lived for this skyline. But now, a different future awaits. He felt a pang of excitement overshadowing his fear. It's time to go home to my family. The aftermath played out in the media. Billionaire Harrington steps back for fatherhood. Headlines varied from mockery to admiration. The stock dipped, then rebounded, as Miss Sharp assured investors. And Dorian discovered a strange serenity in letting go of the unstoppable daily grind. Freed from the 5 a.m. sprints to the tower, he spent more mornings with Cassandra and Caleb, cherishing simple routines like feeding or bath time. Cassandra's law practice stabilized too. She found time to handle select clients while balancing motherhood in the penthouse's comfortable environment. Tension between her and Dorian eased. They found themselves sharing dinner, discussing baby milestones, occasionally drifting into deeper personal talks, like her childhood in a modest suburb or his boarding school upbringing. They grew closer, forging a bond built not only on co-parenting, but genuine respect and affection. One afternoon, while Caleb napped, they lounged on the penthouse balcony. The sun bathed them in gentle warmth, and Cassandra marveled at the quiet hush above the bustling city. Dorian leaned against the railing, casting a thoughtful look her way. Did you ever imagine your life like this? He asked softly. Raising a child with a man you barely dated? She chuckled ruefully. Not in my wildest dreams, but I can't regret it because Caleb is everything. Dorian nodded, watching the skyline. He changed me. A few months ago, I'd have said I was unstoppable. Now I realize I was missing something crucial. Someone to come home to, a reason beyond profit. A gentle breeze rustled Cassandra's hair. She turned, heart fluttering at the sincerity in his eyes. You're a good father, Dorian. We might stumble, but we're learning. Emotion tightened his chest. She sees me as a good father. It was the highest compliment he could imagine. He reached out, briefly caressing her hand. Thank you, and you're an incredible mother. I'm grateful you told me about him. Cassandra's gaze flicked downward, cheeks flushing. I should have told you sooner, she whispered. But I was scared. Scared you'd reject us or see me as a gold digger. His grip on her hand gentled. I'm sorry if I ever gave that impression. I might have been that cold once, but not anymore. The hush lingered between them, a tender possibility shimmering. At that moment, Caleb's soft cry drifted from inside, summoning them. Cassandra turned to go, but Dorian caught her wrist. For a heartbeat, they hesitated, and then he leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her lips. She stiffened, then relaxed, kissing him back with a mix of relief and cautious joy. It was a small, sweet moment, fraught with all the complexities of their unexpected journey. Yet it felt right, a step forward they both wanted. Breaking apart, they shared a shy, hopeful smile. Then Cassandra hurried inside to tend to Caleb, leaving Dorian on the balcony, heart pounding in a way no business triumph had ever matched. He realized that stepping back from Harrington Global might be the best deal he ever made. Because in forging a real connection with Cassandra and their child, he was unlocking a future far richer than any corporate conquest could yield. Several months later, on a mild spring morning, the penthouse brimmed with a warmth it had never known. Sunlight spilled across the living room floors where small foam mats and stuffed toys lay scattered. Caleb, healthier and stronger, gurgled happily as he attempted his first wobbly steps. Cassandra knelt nearby, arms outstretched, cheering him on. Dorian knelt opposite, phone camera ready, capturing every precious second. "There you go," Cassandra exclaimed, voice bright with excitement as Caleb tottered forward. Dorian's heart soared. He's walking, a milestone more fulfilling than any board merger. The toddler stumbled into Cassandra's arms, squealing with delight. She planted a soft kiss on his chubby cheek. Grinning ear to ear, Dorian shuffled over, hugging them both. Cassandra leaned her head against his shoulder. Content. The quiet hum of city traffic outside felt distant compared to this intimate bubble of love. The Harrington Global Board had settled into Miss Sharp's leadership. Quarterly reports showed stable growth, affirming Dorian's decision to step back. Meanwhile, tabloids had moved on to new scandals, leaving him with a freer personal life. He still oversaw big-picture strategy as chairman, but day by day, fatherhood and forging a deeper relationship with Cassandra took precedence. Cassandra looked up at him, a playful glint in her eye. "Think we'll survive his toddler phase? He's already a handful." Dorian chuckled, a surge of paternal pride lighting his chest. "We'll survive and love every minute. I never thought life could feel so full." For a moment, the old relentless ambition flickered in his mind. But overshadowing it was the sweetness of the life he was building, a real, living bond with Cassandra and Caleb. "I used to measure success by quarterly earnings. Now, it's measured by each step my son takes. Each day we grow closer as a family." He pressed a gentle kiss to Cassandra's temple. They turned their attention back to Caleb, who babbled happily, unaware of how he'd transformed their worlds. The vibrant morning sunlight caught all three of them in a soft glow, a snapshot of joy. In that hush, Dorian silently thanked the fates for the phone call that changed everything, leading him to embrace the greatest venture of his life: fatherhood, love, and a lasting legacy that no corporate empire could rival. If you like this story, be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. And if you enjoy stories that embraces your heart, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. Let me know in the comments what stood out to you the most. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.